Hi there. Welcome to our latest bonus chat. This is from our pod recording looking back over Leinster v Stormers. If you missed it, you'll find it on Apple, Spotify, and all the other usual places. Well, it's Six Nations time again, and Ireland are going for an unprecedented third title in a row. We certainly will be contenders, and this is the year we play England and France at home. But on the other hand, we have Andy Farrell assuming his Lions role, so the pressure is on Simon Easterby to deliver. And not too long before we started recording, the news broke that it's very likely that Tyke Furlong will be unavailable. So with all that in mind, what kind of starting lineup will we see against England next weekend? But for this video, our Harpin panel will be going about putting together a matchday 23 in probably the worst possible way by committee, with Jay selecting the forwards, here on the backs, and I'll have a go at the bench. So off you go, Jay. Let's be having your pack.
Yeah, so this is what I've written down before I send it off to Simon anyway. So I would say, I think Andy Porter, as straight up, was probably one of the first names on the sheet for me. It'd be particularly interesting to take a leaf out of Leinster book, and I don't know, I think it was yourself that coined the term the Porter Protocol, Jeff, a couple of pods ago. I think that was a nice way of putting it. But I think we probably will just see Porter start rather than the 20 minutes of Keane Healy busting himself or similar. At hooker, I think we'll probably see Kelleher. Obviously, Dan made his kind of return versus the Stormers just in this recent game. So he'd be coming into camp late. He's only back. So I think the obvious choice there is maybe to start Kelleher in that stage with Dan. Probably more than capable of taking that jersey firmly back in his own hands at a later date. I would have said Furlong would be my choice, tight head, but as you said, unfortunately, we just got the news before recording that he's flying home from Portugal, which is rather worrying. I wouldn't be overly concerned to start to see Finlay. He's performed for us in the past. I don't think he was particularly. He didn't have the best November, if I remember rightly. Maybe that's a little unfair, but he's a tried and tested campaigner. No concerns with Finlay starting anyway. The second row, really, for me, I think Big Joe is definitely starting. The jersey is very much his now. I think the question really becomes who you pair him with. And that kind of really, in my opinion, boils down to the question of where you put Tyburn. Really, that's the only question for me here. I would gladly see Tyburn in at 5 with, say, a Cormac Izuchuku or Ryan Baird at 6. But for me, given that these guys beat us the last time out, given how good James Ryan has been looking the last couple of seasons, I think I'll go with the tried and tested thing of Big Joe and James Ryan in the second row for me, and with Tyburn at 6. 6 probably isn't Tyke's best position, but I think the best position for a bloke who's arguably one of the best players on the planet is still pretty good. So I think Tyburn will continue to do Tyburn things at 6. And then 7, who else? Mr. Van der Fleer. Every time I think I've seen him plateau at some incredible level, he seems to bust through it. So he's been fantastic this season. Definitely one of the standout players for Ireland in November. And he's in flying form for Leinster. So definitely Josh Van der Fleer at 6. And surprise, surprise, I think we're probably going to end up putting Caelan Doris in at 8. Unfortunately, Captain Doris. So yeah, that's my pack for next week.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it almost picks itself, but you're right about what to do with Tyburn. I mean, like going back to this time last year, Peter O'Mahony was the captain. He would have been there at 6. He's in the squad again, but they've changed the captain around. So I think O'Mahony's role has kind of changed. He's a leader, seriously in the leadership group, but I think he's more. And I think this is the structure that works best. Burns, you got to have Burn on the pitch. Joe and James Ryan have been playing together pretty much all season. It just all works, and I agree with you as well on Sheehan coming on later. He had a good shift at the Aviva on Saturday, but I think you're talking about what's going to be a big attritional match. Kelleher's been playing all season. He's probably the guy to start. But then again, Sheehan could come on at any stage really, and he's ready for it. So yeah, that's pretty much how the pack could be shaping up. Which means Kieran's going to be doing the backs for us. So why don't you take it away?
Yeah, so starting at scrum half, I think it's realistically between Jamison Gibson Park and Conor Murray because Caelan Blade's obviously only joining up with the squad this week. I think Monday as this goes out. But I think realistically it's either Gibson Park or Murray for the tournament, barring injury. I'd like to see us build a bit of depth at nine. I'm not sure if that's going to happen now or over the summer, but I think Gibson Park starts. I just think he's probably makes a better impact for starting the game. I won't tell you who to pick on the bench, but I think if you're having one start and one on the bench, I think Gibson Park's the one to start. Number 10, then we obviously don't talk about fly half. For me, Jack Crowley starts, and it's not that I think there's no discussion to be had. It's just that I think the discussion is fairly straightforward in the sense that Jack Crowley has this is what now his third year, second year, being one of Ireland's number one fly half. He hasn't put a foot wrong, really. He hasn't done anything. He's made the odd mistake in games, but crucially, when he makes a mistake, which all players do, especially young players, crucially when he makes a mistake, he immediately bounces back. He keeps the head up. He's a very good confidence player, not a cocky player, but the kind of player who's confident in his own ability. I think he's quite dynamic as well. I think him and Gibson Barker are our best halfback pairing. But for Crowley, I'd say, it's not that Sam Prendergast, Kieran Frawley um, aren't also good. I just think, Prendergast is still young and probably like as good as he's been, he hasn't played for very long. He doesn't have a lot of experience, and Frawley just hasn't had the game time at 10. I think Crowley's still the best option there. I think there's a discussion to be had if Crowley has a terrible game against England, then obviously there's a call to be made ahead of the Scotland game. But I think for this match, and Crowley was exceptional against Northampton. He was excellent. He kept Munster in that game. I think he's capable of winning a game via fly half. So for me, he's the one to go with. And yeah, look, obviously Sam Prendergast, great young player. Jack Crowley's still fairly young as well. And the reality is, you can't keep replacing players with younger and younger players, and eventually you're only playing 20 and 21-year-olds. You have to give players a chance as well. So I think Jack Crowley's earned his spot at number 10. Don't think that means we should nail it down and say he's the number 10 for the next World Cup just yet. I think that depends on a lot closer to the time, but certainly for um, the games against France and England, I think he'd be my preferred choice to start. Number 11, then the left wing was a tricky one for me to pick because before the game against Stormers, I was thinking, James Lowe was only just back, wasn't sure how much we'd see of him, wasn't sure how much we get back. So who do you pick if you're not picking James Lowe? For me, it's probably Calvin Nash or Jimmy O'Brien. Now, Nash, I was looking at, I think he's only played 5% of his games on the left wing. Something like that, 95 on the other right wing. There's like games as a winger. He would be playing out of position. I think he'd be capable of doing a job, but he'd be playing out of position. Jimmy O'Brien, obviously a very versatile player. And the thing about James Lowe is you're probably either starting him or he's not involved in the squad because he only really covers that one position. And you probably need a more versatile back on the bench. But I was thinking O'Brien or Nash, but then James Lowe has an amazing game against Stormers, looks fully fit. I agree with Jay about Dan Sheehan maybe not starting, but I think James Lowe is capable of coming straight in. Particularly with the fact that I'm picking Mac Hansen on the other wing and Hugo Keenan at fullback because I think that's just our best back three. So I'd have James Lowe there, maybe not to play all 80 minutes, but I think he's shown he's ready to go. Then the centre partnership, 13 is 13 is kind of the backs version of Josh van der Fleer. I think who else do you pick when everyone's fit? Gary Ringrose. It's always going to be Ringrose. I think he's a leader in the team, and again he's been excellent defensively for Leinster this season. So 12 is an interesting one because you have Bundy Aki, you have Stuart McCluskey, you have Robbie Henshaw, and again, it's probably any of those three could start, but only one of them is probably going to be in the squad realistically if everyone's fit. So I went with Aki. I think I just like the partnership of him and Ringrose. I think Aki is a big battering ram. Maybe a bit harsh on Henshaw. Maybe a bit hard. I think McCluskey would. I'd like to see McCluskey go on tour over the summer or be involved later in the Six Nations. But I think I went with Aki there because I think again he's one of these leaders in the team, and I think him and Ringrose. I just have it a slightly 5% better combination than Henshaw and Ringrose for Ireland. Not by much. Wouldn't be worried about any of those players starting. But yeah, I went so Gibson Park, Crowley, James Lowe, Bundy Aki, Gary Ringrose, Matt Hansen, Hugo Keenan. Just a word on Keenan, I think he showed when he came back he's already up to speed again. He just seems to be one of these superhuman players who he can miss. He regularly gets injured, but the second he's back, he hits the ground running again. So I think he's our best player at 15. Probably another position along with 9 that we need to build that bit of depth in over the summer. If Keenan, I imagine he'd get into the Lions squad, but if he doesn't, I'd hope he doesn't play in that summer tour and that we're building a bit of depth at 15. That's going to be a massive tour, I think. But yeah, they're my backs for the opening game against England.
Yeah, I mean, you hear all this talk already about Crowley, Prendergast, and there's going to be an argument. Of course, we're a Leinster-based pod, so I presume everyone's going to think we're going to be making this big case for Sam Prendergast, and it's like I don't think anyone would argue that it is Jack Crowley's jersey. He hasn't done he's done anything to lose it. I think it's now, but there's now pressure on him now. There's players to replace him if he does, but I think going in, I mean, we're starting with such a big game against England. It's Six Nations, it's going to pretty much define the whole tournament, how this game goes. I think Jack Crowley is definitely the guy for that. And like you say, in the center, it's like, I think Ringrose pretty much nailed on 13 when he's fit. It's question mark over 12, but I think Bundy is the right way to go. But you could go either way. But yeah, so that's a great back line there. Now, when it comes to me, I've given myself the bench. So I've agreed with Jay for 16. We'll go with Sheehan to provide some impact. The props. We've been left to the situation. It's great to see Jack Boyle in the squad, but you're going to see Healy on the bench pretty much to cover Porter. I'd say. I think Clarkson had a good November. So they brought up Jack. It was an Ainger. They brought up the bench. That probably means Clarkson will move up a spot. He'll get the 18. Now, when you get to 19 and 20, it gets really interesting. I think taking form out of it, I have a feeling he would be inclined to put Henderson 19. You want the experience in the dressing room, but I hate to say it, but I just don't think he's on the form. He's been showing the form we'd come to expect from him over the years, especially in a green jersey. Anyway, I still have a feeling he's going to be in the team. He's going to be on the bench there. But I think when you're looking at when the squad was announced, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, Ahern, Munster," and everyone goes to when people are talking about players who shouldn't be in the squad, it's always Leinster players they go for. But I think if Ahern was going to make his way into this team, I think it might have been maybe ahead of Henderson. But I'm also wondering could we go with 2 flankers on the bench with Byrne playing 6. And if you're going to see a sort of not even a wild card because he's played for Ireland already and done well, but Izachukwu would be a good person to maybe put in. He's that kind of 5'6" kind of hybrid as well. And that allows you to have O'Mahony maybe 20 because you're going to have him in the dressing room. You're going to have his experience. I always love him having in an Irish 23 any way you can anyway. I'm a Peter O'Mahony fan, whatever jersey he's wearing. And I would have him as 20, but I have a feeling I'm putting Henderson down, but I think if you want to change something and have a little bit of a different look, maybe put Izzy in there at 19. So that's the way I'm thinking there. The backs, Conor Murray, 21. It's unfortunate. Craig Casey was unfortunate with his injury, but so he probably would have been there. But Conor Murray steps in. Now 22 and 23. I think Sam Prendergast is pretty much nailed on 22, but 23, it's like, my God, you look back at that win in South Africa. And that tour of South Africa, it was Frawley and Osborne. We were all talking about the two of them had an amazing couple of weeks, and it was a real kind of launch their Ireland career. But now we're haggling over like which one of them could wear the 23 jersey. If even they do, you could put Robbie Henshaw 23, but it gives you kind of options. Frawley and Osborne gives you better options because they play multiple positions. I think they're kind of perfect for that jersey between the two of them. But if you've already got Prendergast there, you might want to lean maybe towards Osborne for 23. So I'll have him there. But Frawley he's kind of fallen off a cliff. He's not coming up in injury reports. He wasn't in Leinster. He hasn't been in Leinster 23s, but here he is. He's in the Ireland squad. So considering how well he's been playing, you figure he's going to feature. But I suppose all things taken consider, I'll put Osborne at 23. But listen, there's loads of different ways you could do it. I know people are going to disagree. We always disagree over a team 23. So put your own suggestions. Tell us if we're mad with our picks or whatever what we're saying. Give your own suggestions in the comments. But that's our 23 anyway.